In this segment, our MBYLL coaching panel is going to be discussing coaching practices. And that's really one of the most time-consuming and important endeavors that we take. We spend most of our time coaching at practices, even though it's all really about the games on Sundays, isn't it? What areas of focus do we need the parents and players and our town directors and everyone to kind of make aware of how important it is for us? What are those areas?
In general, for a practice, again, I need to plan. I need to have a plan. And the way I do a youth practice is I focus on the feet first to get them moving, and then their hands, and then a drill, and then play. But along the lines of that sequence that I have in my head, which is simple for me, it's 4 things. I want to get them moving. I want to keep them busy. I want to keep an eye on my watch, make sure things are truncated. But there's teaching in there as well. I mean, in the beginning, I want to get them moving. I'm not really teaching. Go through these drills. Boys are, they're moving their bodies in different ways. Coach, you said it earlier. I thought it was a great point about we want to imitate what happens on a field. And I heard Belichick say last year, he came, visited my school, talked to all the football coaches. He said this cool thing. Sounds like, oh, well, why didn't I ever think of that? He said, we don't practice anything we don't see from above in film. So what I try to do just in the beginning is we want the V-cuts. We want you to come up and, come up, close, and break down. So we teach their feet first because I think we can do that without a lot of talk. But then we go to the hands, and our skills. And the way I do that is I, we, and then you approach, which takes time. What I mean by that is I will model it, and then I'll model it in different ways. And then we'll do it together. Why don't we do it together in pairs? And that can be by ability or mixed ability. That could be, new with newcomers, novices with experienced guys. And then, hey, you go do it by yourself, and I let them go. Because that's part of learning theory too. Hey, right, go make some errors, and then we move to and I know this is structural here, but then we go to just some basic triangle stuff, how to use your head in the game, how to balance, how to move the field, basic stuff, strong to weak. But then in the end is, I think probably this is where it all comes together, is play. And I script the scrimmages. We're going to do this scrimmage, but I want you to try to do this. The ball will always go around when you run, so it's a little like let them play with only some correction. So I know that's a lot, but going back one more time is feet, get them moving. You're an athlete, son. Even without your stick, work on their hands in a teaching environment, work on a little of the idea stuff with drills, and then go get them, have fun.
Well, that's it. I think nobody comes to work lacrosse. Everybody comes to play lacrosse. So you make a really good point.
Good point.
And once we do get these kids moving, then it's about repetition, right? And we have to. We like to call it touches.
Yes.
And there are so many drills that you can get bogged down, and the kid might be in a line for 10 minutes before he gets his one touch. So we have to be creative, and there are a lot of different drills, and there's a great resource with the MBYLL website that has tons of drills that coaches can pick from, where these kids are getting these high rep and high touch volume, and it's really that simple. So we don't need some high level former lacrosse player, just somebody who's relatable to the children.
Sure,
and,
always.
No doubt.
That's what we're trying to.
No doubt.
So when you put together a practice plan, which we all agree is critical, how much input do you take from your assistant coaches? How much input do you take from parents, if any?
I mean, I think as much as possible. I think that's the first thing. It's just as important for a coach or someone who's running a program or even just starting a program, right? To have that community, right? Team by committee, right? Coaching a team by committee environment because we're hearing these opportunities, right? Lacrosse is applied, the skills we learn in lacrosse, right, are applied across so many other sports. So we have parents who are experts and have coached in those different things. But, owning a certain drill, especially, right, especially if we're new in the game and we're coaching at the youth level, 10 years and under, rather than owning the practice, rather than me, soup to nuts, running the warm-up, our stick skills, running the defense, transition, and offensive drills, I mean, makes it way easier to, Sunday night, whenever works for you, for the coaches when you guys are together, to say, okay, here's what we're looking at. If we're going to have 3 different stations, we'd like to have an offense, a defense, transition station, depending on the numbers we have. But right, being able to say, I want you to seek out this drill and let's talk about it, right? Is this the right drill for the team, right? Breeds ownership and an opportunity to learn the game, and it makes it easier as a coach to run a practice. So everyone has a voice coaching-wise, which I think is the best part about it.
And it's a fluid process too, right? We develop a lot of knowledge from game day. You know, we see what our strengths and weaknesses are, and we might want to practice those throughout the week, the different opportunities.
I would say I've been on a lot of staffs. You know, I was, you know, here's a plug. You know, I coached with my high school coach, Bussy Adam, just stepped down, winningest coach in history. My first 8 years coaching was with him, 8 Eastern Mass finals, 5 state championships. People say, how do you do it? Well, you know, we planned, and we'd have a discussion every day. What's going well? How's Chris doing in school? We would have a talk. And what do we want to do? Well, let's just go with this plan. But even more importantly, what we did after a practice. You know, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? I don't know, the kids weren't having fun. Well, what could we do? Even a chat in the parking lot. But this communication is so important, as we all know in our workplaces too, because you want to empower people. Love what you said, Coach. You know, I could start pushing buttons and send an email out, hey, we're going to do this, this, this. Yeah. But for me to say, hey, you know, to even, let's say you're coaching wrestling with me and you're like, Coach, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, but that seemed a little too intense. Well, that's good feedback. So as a coach, I want to include everybody. I want to learn because, again, they're challenging my biases. But again, feedback too, at least once every 2 weeks. Hey, boys, everybody get over there, take an index card, say 2 things you love about practice, 2 things that aren't going well or you're struggling with, take the cards home. Wow, maybe we got it. So, you know, it evolves, but again, it's communication and it's respecting every member, every coach, and giving them and empowering them and balancing that, you know.
Absolutely.
So we have a practice plan that we put a lot of time and thought into, and we take some other people as you know, their advice and input. How about a season plan? Do we have something that we come into a year saying we're going to be here week 1, we're going to be here week 5, here at the end, and how often does that change?
We actually do have that. Yeah, we have that model, and what's nice about the organization that I was formerly with, Tribal, is we've archived it so that they can be recycled year after year. Obviously, they grow and they get more enhanced, but it gives new coaches a framework. So not only do they have the support of the MBYLL, but they have our infrastructure as a youth organization as well to model after. So those practice plans are all kind of in place. They're able to pull them up offline for new coaches. So it really simplifies the process for our kids.
Well, you know, this question is right up my alley because I'm a teacher and I work with new teachers, and I tell them, they'll come in and say, Ed, you know, how do I get through this quarter? I'll say, they're just trying to survive. They're going practice to practice or day to day, and you'll be like, that's part of it. That's part of the learning process first. But you do want to have a map. You know, we're going to coach, let's say we're going to do, I don't know, first and second grade level this year. We're going to write down all the practice dates and say, guys, what do you think? Maybe by practice 6, we can get everybody to learn proper catching technique and throwing technique. And maybe by week 10, we can get everybody to understand our little house defense, or we just got some points that we're putting in there. But, you know, there's the other stuff I did a couple of years ago. My son said, Dad, you got all these plans. Where's all the fun stuff? I'm like, wait a minute, you're right. Night out for ice cream every 2 weeks, you know, or parents, you know, like put in 2 parents' nights, you know, parents at practice night or something. But just that scope and sequence is tremendously important. Then the last thing I'll say, and I that's why I'm here today, is this is a community. I mean, I picked up a stick in Massachusetts 40 years ago, and I can pick up the phone and call fellows who are much older, but I know I could call guys who are 22, very, very knowledgeable, and say, hey, I'm kind of struggling with this. This game's kind of changed. Oh, coach, try this. So the resources are there, and I think Mass Bay Youth Lacrosse does a great job of connecting people to help each other.
Absolutely. So our hope and expectation is a lot of coaches are going to come into their season and say, We're going to use our resources. We're going to plan everything out. By week 6, we're going to be 5-1 or 6-0, and every kid on my staff's going to pass and catch. We're going to be running a triangle offense. We're going to be recognizing the second slide, and then the reality kicks in.
Sure, no doubt.
And how do we keep coaches encouraged? How do we have them remap their season, perhaps? What ways can we kind of, just reconfigure our season and our expectations to make sure it's positive for everybody?
I would only answer that. I've coached teams that are, I coached at St. Paul's in Baltimore. Time for the #1 team. That was exciting. I've coached teams that are 0-9. It has to do with what we're measuring. And you said 5-1, 6-1. A few years ago, I coached a youth team. They had a tough year last year, 0-11. And I met with the parents. I said, we're going to count number of passes. Boom. I don't care what happens.
Yep.
First game, these kids couldn't pass. I think they had 60 passes. You should have seen the response, both in terms of their excitement and this belief in a measurable goal. So I'm not saying, I'm a very competitive person. I'm not saying that scoreboard isn't important. But, parents, when you come to the game, you're going to see the boys stop the other players with their hands. We're going to try to do that 40 times today. And then passing, we're going to overpass. Or we're going to be the first, not necessarily the guy to pick up the ground ball, but the first guy to the ground ball. So if we can give those, they provide hope, they're measurable, but more importantly, the parent on the sideline is saying, wow, my son can't pick up the ball yet. He's to every ball. Or so again, changing the lens, right, of what success is. And then the coaches are like, hey, we're 0-5, but guess what? We just made 50 passes. And I think that has something to do with it.
Absolutely. Managing expectations is what it's all about. The second that we forget that it's about something way bigger than us, we're not in the right space. So, I think keeping it about the kids, right, and checking yourself at the door when you walk out to practice, bringing that energy that is really fundamental about being a coach and why we're doing what we're doing, and for sure, right, it's a game that can be fun when you change that. When you change that lens of what you're focusing on, and again, it comes down to us. And if we're the ones who are driving that, right, we are the person who's running things on the sideline, and that's all we're doing. But our energy is ubiquitous and is absorbed, by these kids. So not just absorbed by the kids, absorbed by the parents. So change the game, right? Yeah. It's fun. Sure. It's always fun.
And as a coach, if we can get 100% out of each individual on that team, the scoreboard always seems to take care of itself. It does.
Sure.
If the kids are gelling and playing together and trying their hardest, success is inevitable in that respect.
Very true.
Lacrosse is undoubtedly a running sport. How do we incorporate running into practice without kind of being lazy about just throwing sprints at the end of a practice?
Sure.
How do we incorporate that in there?
I think for me, the way I approach practice is it's drill, 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 and we are getting repetitions on repetitions, and the kids in their mind are like, oh, this is great. We're just playing a ton of lacrosse. Where realistically, they're also getting much fitter, right? And becoming game ready.
Right.
And we know very well there are work drills, right? There are drills where you're working really hard, and of course the kids feel it, right? And that's good, right? Because in the game you're going to get to those uncomfortable circumstances where you've gone up and down twice, and I can't sub you off, but this is now where you are, right? You are adapting to a change in that environment. Oh, and we love that, right? That's where they're growing their physical, their physical fitness, even at a young age, right?
Yes.
We're seeing them grow and expand.
Coaches, what are the characteristics of a very successful practice? Ones that you planned it out, and then afterwards you walk away saying, we got a lot of work done tonight in 90 minutes or whatever it is. So what are some of those things that happen where you say, well worth it?
I would just say, you've been through it before. When the kids say, "What, practice is over?"
That's a good way.
No,
to put
I don't want it to be over. The drills are never seamless, but we had a plan. We went from one to the other. We had good water breaks. Maybe we brought them in once or twice to say, these are things we're focusing on as a team or what have you. And then that game part at the end is just, they lose themselves in that, the scrimmage, whatever those scrimmages are, whether it be by ability, maybe I have all my kids who can pass and catch left to right, or mixed ability. But after that, what happened? Can't we keep practicing? So it's something to do. It's two things. It's structured, but it organically goes, and at the end they're all fired up and high-fiving each other.
I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, a great practice to me is starting out on the right note, right? So bringing the energy starts with us, right? Bringing the energy starts with us always. So starting out on the right note, positive, productive, and that, right? You start on a good note in practice, it just, breeds that positive momentum of, hey, this next drill, we've got full effort. Next drill, full effort. We're getting better. We're growing. We're having fun. The kids are having fun because we're having fun and we are executing the drills we want while we're having fun. I mean, it is like an explosion of development that is, it's kind of, the most fun thing to see as a coach, right?
Yeah.
And on the flip side, what are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the things that we can do, the errors that could create a bad practice and something that can stick with our kids that will translate to games?
Yeah, well, the first one we certainly touched on, and that's a coach that comes in with low energy, a coach that comes in with no organization, and the kids smell it on you, so they just, they lack energy, they lack organization as well, they don't try. And you really have to do something as their leader, as their coach, to turn it around. And there are different things we can try. Do you have, what are some of the things that
I would just say, I mean, I'm a teacher. We all have jobs, and you have these dads who show up or moms that are helping. They're tired.
Yep.
And Coach, I love your point. You got to come prepared. But guess what? You're human. You're a coach. You're tired. So a lot of nights I might show up and say, Coach, could you take the beginning? Take this. Have your assistant. Hey, take this, man. I'm tired. Or wait a minute. I'm so tired to teach right now. Let's start with a scrimmage today. Shift it up.
Change it up. Sure.
Change it up. Get that. Put the energy onto them. There'll be nights when you're fired up, really, those nights when you're like, I'm ready, my plan is great, and then there'll be other nights where you're like, wow, I need coffee at 7 o'clock. And that might be the assistant coach, hey, could you start it? Or let's just start with a game. Get them going until, and that gives us space as a coach to be like, and we can stand on the side and say, hey, what direction we want to go. And that's the same as if the kids are having a bad night. We've been there. You show up, you're all fired up. We're going to play Johns Hopkins with these 7-year-olds. We're fired up, right? And then all of a sudden you got Billy's pushing Johnny, and this guy forgot his helmet, and he's got one cleat, and you're like, oh boy. So you hit the curveball a little bit and try to, just try to, make it fun. Let's just engage, but being flexible, right?
Yep.
Right.
Being flexible, and maybe changing it up, and again, you have a group of people there who are going to support you as a coach.
So coaches, collectively, we have decades worth of experience at the youth level, at least, alone. What advice do you have for our first year coach? Someone coming into this for the first time, with or without experience, but working with these kids for the first time. As sort of a final thought on this subject, what do we have for them?
I think, to start with, they need to realize that they're not alone, right? This is a big community. Lacrosse community at large is enormous, but it's broken down into regions, and Mass Bay Youth Lacrosse Organization, of course, does a great job organizing and giving us the opportunity to share ideas and giving us platforms for that. They have monthly meetings where you can talk with other coaches and get the support that you need as a new coach. So that's the beginning. I think many of the coaches are going to have the same types of questions. So it's important that they get in a situation where they can share those kinds of ideas and grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a new coach, I mean, you've already made that first decision, so we appreciate you, right? Getting involved at the the grassroots level. If you've played, if you haven't played, great. Right? Any way to get involved is the best way to get involved. And I think first and foremost, leveraging what's directly available to you online, right, through our videos here, with the MBYLL online, but also right through the clinic that you'll attend as a coach, right? Being able to approach that with the mindset of, okay, what can I get out of this? Not just for my knowledge, but to bring to that specific level that I'm going to coach. And then the third thing, right, is thinking internally, thinking about those who you can network with inside of that coaching community you have within your town, right, and building rapport there. Because again, you're not going it alone. You shouldn't have to be developing a practice plan on your own. We're all doing other things too, and we want to prioritize this. But don't do it on your own. And you've got directors who have typically been in it longer in that town and have been developing lacrosse within the town. And even outside of that, there's further resources online, high school programs, other people in your community who've played lacrosse, and across the entire Mass Bay community who can be resources and would love to have a conversation just about lacrosse and how we think about it and what we could do to help you.
So I think you all kind of alluded to it, is that Mass Bay Youth Lacrosse League is a network. We're a network of coaches, and so the three of you represent thousands of incredible coaches. I want to thank each of you for your contributions to this and wish you all great seasons. And I hope that our coaches get a ton out of this.